right. There we go. Good evening. We are live on the Believe in Monsters podcast tonight. Another week talking Chicago Bears football. We are midway into the offseason. We're the franchise tag deadline came to a head today, and we're on the precipice of free agency. So we appreciate everybody jumping in and joining us tonight on the Believe in Monsters podcast, a part of the Believe Network. Joe Gaither, Chris Krogman, and Lucas Berry hanging out with you, seeing what we can do to rebuild our Chicago Bears. And without further ado, we have a very special episode tonight because we have a very special guest, Mr. John McClain, former writer from the Houston Chronicle. He writes now for GallerySports.com and is a part of SportsRadio610.com. He spent his last week up at the Combine, so we're excited to pick his brain. Nobody knows Houston and the Houston Texans and really NFL better than John McClain. So it's our honor to have John tonight. You can follow him on Twitter at McClain_on_NFL on the Twitter machine. If you're not one of his thousands of followers, go ahead and do that right now. So, Chris, without further ado, how are you tonight? And you could check in with Luke, and we'll get right into it with John. And we're super, super excited for tonight's episode.
Absolutely, Joe. Doing awesome. Can't wait to get into this discussion. Lucas, my man, how are you?
I'm doing really well. I am super happy to be able to talk to John McClain tonight. John, thank you so much for joining us here on Believe in Monsters podcast on the Believe Network. We are super stoked to talk to you. So obviously, were you at the Combine last week? How was that experience down there?
Well, let's see. I've been going to every one in Indy since 1987. They tend to run together. I'm just blown away the way media people get so excited about what guys do in shorts and T-shirts. I do 11 weekly shows. One of them's in Nashville, another one's in Knoxville, and they've watched Anthony Richardson for a season, and they both said, man, you got to pump the brakes on Anthony Richardson. We all knew he could run. He's got great size. He's got great arm. He's athletic, but he's inaccurate, and he doesn't have experience. Doesn't mean he can't learn and improve his accuracy, but it's always amazing to me how people fall in love with, as Dan Campbell calls it, in their pajamas. Others have called it the underwear Olympics. But it's it's funny. Ever since the NFL took it into a new stratosphere, it's become such an event. And I admit, after being there all week, I come home, I watch it over and over. I love doing it, and so there was a lot of buzz about a lot of people and different reasons. One guy's size, another one is arrest warrants, another one because he was outstanding physically, and so it was all over the board.
Yeah, so I'm totally with you. You know, people definitely overblow the Combine and and the 40 times and all that, the bench press, and you got guys flying all over the draft board just because of a workout, but. Here on this podcast, we're interested because the number one pick is for sale, and it seems like that was, the talk of the town. Is there anything you can give us that you heard down there about the Bears and what they're doing with that number one pick, and maybe how soon that is going to get traded?
Well, first, it's not going to get traded anytime soon because there's got to be a whole lot of investigating going on with Jalen Carter, and something that Ryan Poles has got to be very careful of. If they decide that Carter is not worth taking in the first 4 picks, because everybody knew he had character issues before the arrest warrant, and the fact that he could possibly have played a role in 2 people getting killed. So they're going to have to do some serious investigating of him. But if the Bears do indeed want a defensive lineman like Carter or Will Anderson Jr., who has no character issues whatsoever, and if they think, okay, we're not taking Carter, we're not taking him among the top 4, how can they trade with the Colts at 4? Because they go to 4, Arizona's going to take Will Anderson Jr., and then who are the Bears going to take? Because there's nobody rated close to Anderson and Carter among the position players. And, of course, top quarterbacks are Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. And so that's something you got to be careful not to get too cute. Now, if they determine we don't have a problem with anything Jalen Carter done, then they can make a trade with the Texans at 2 or the Colts at 4 or both of them. It's a great position for Ryan Poles to be in. Fans and media in Houston will never forgive Lovie Smith for beating the Colts in the last game, going for 2 and winning it. You know, you hear, like, if you were to ask, what are a couple of the worst victories in Bears history? Or if you were to ask me, I'm sorry, losses, and then you ask me what are a couple of the worst Oilers losses, Texans losses, I can tell you, but how often can you say what is the worst victory? I've never said those 2 words in my life until the Texans beat the Bears and cost themselves a number 1 pick. And so what I heard, here's what I heard. Same things you guys hear in Chicago. The Bears could trade the pick. They could trade it to 2. They could trade it to 4. They could keep the pick. They could trade down farther and get more picks. One of the things you got to keep in mind, what the Bears do depends heavily on what they do in free agency. And they got more money than anybody.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting. Sales and Eberflus try to win March like the Jaguars. It finally paid off for the Jaguars last year. When they signed all these free agents and made a big splash, usually it doesn't pay off, but what they do in free agency will have a lot to do with what he does there, but he's going to be able to get an impact player regardless. I think anybody would love to have Will Anderson Jr. I met him when I was making a presentation at the Lombardi Awards this year, and he won it over Jalen Carter and 2 others. And that kid, you talk about somebody that is a pleasure to be around, who could represent any organization. It's amazing the disparity between him and Jalen Carter.
Interesting. Well, John, you
in what
up,
way? In what way? Just personality wise, or in what way?
No, their character. My goodness. You know, if you go back, and I read every single word I could read, police report and everything, because I've been fascinated when about that wreck, because it was so unnecessary. It was so tragic. It's 2 miles from the Georgia campus. You know, it happened at 2:30 or 4:30. I can't remember. They'd been at strip clubs. One of them worked for the team. She was killed. She was driving. And it was just such a tragedy. And then Carter lied to the police all along about everything. And in fact, he left the scene of an accident, and a staff member talked him into going back. Now he's got charges. He went back to answer them. Then he came back to the combine to answer teams' questions about it. And he didn't say, I can't answer that on the advice of my attorney because of the ongoing investigation. You know, what he told him behind the scenes was his version of the events, and hopefully he was more honest with them than he was with the police.
Very interesting. Man, that's, you know, it kind of reminds the Laramie Tunsil thing, right? Draft day gets
smoking a bong on a gas mask. Remember Warren Sapp, story in the New York Times, said he did cocaine, and boy, he just kept dropping, and it worked out great for him because he's in the Hall of Fame. And there have been other examples. I remember one guy, he had a wreck the night before the draft, and he got hurt. He told his agent. Agent didn't let teams know. Some team drafted him fairly high. You talk about a bunch of teams being mad at an agent. I don't remember who the player was, but for Carter's sake, it's good that it came out now and not 2 or 3 days before the draft, like Tunsil's did when somebody wanted to get even with him.
Right. Well, John, you bring up, you know, the Bears' potential opportunity to potentially move down twice. A lot of smoke around that lately. All Bears fans have, you know, their Madden GM caps on, and they're going to get 100 picks for, you know, number 1. Realistically, from a Houston standpoint, what do you think is a realistic move up trade for Houston?
I don't think the Texans are going to trade. They've got the draft capital to do it. They've got 11 picks, 2 number 1 picks. They still have 12 that they got from Cleveland for Deshaun Watson. They have 10 next year, including 2 more ones, the last of the 3 that they got for Watson. And they need a quarterback in the worst way. They also need defensive linemen like Will Anderson Jr. And D'Amico Ryans being a defensive coordinator for the 49ers. When they hired him, it was more popular than any move I can ever remember since I've been covering NFL in Houston since 1977. People were just so excited to have him because he's one of the all-time best and popular players, but also because the organization has been so pathetic, been involved in so much controversy, and having him come in here people are pumped. It's the first time they've taken any kind of attention away from the Astros. Now, I tweeted earlier that the only way you can douse that D'Amico Ryan's fire would be to sign Jimmy Garoppolo or say Davis Mills is going to start again. They need a franchise quarterback. They need Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. Nobody likes the two the same. And I don't know. Nick Caserio has final say on all personnel. D'Amico Ryan's. He comes from San Francisco, where he's seen him trade for Garoppolo, trade expensively to move up to get Trey Lance, and then draft Mr. Irrelevant. So they've done all of that since he was there. And what worries me about Garoppolo, D'Amico Ryan's the new offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, the new quarterback coach, Gerard Johnson, among other 49er coaches. They were with Garoppolo in San Francisco. And I'm hoping they realize he's injury prone. He's not going to get better. And if I'm Garoppolo, I don't want to come to the Texans. They're not going anywhere. I want to go somewhere where I got to actually have a chance to go to the playoffs. So that means he should go to the NFC South, where everybody has a chance to finish first or last. Right now, I wouldn't be saying it was the Saints because they signed Derek Carr. But I think because Indy is so desperate, because they've started now 6 different quarterbacks in 6 years. Jim Irsay wants to make a move. Chris Ballard wants to make a move. Don't know all the capital they'll have. I think they'd be giving the Bears picks for the next 3 years. And that they would be more likely to leap up and swap spots. And then if they took, say, Bryce Young, the Texans could take Stroud or vice versa. But I'd be surprised if the Texans would play because make that move because they have so many needs on both sides of the ball. The last thing they can afford to do would be giving up draft choices.
Well, they got so many, John. I mean, we only need a few. No big deal. We're just moving one spot. The Bears are used to moving one spot for a quarterback.
Yeah, the Bears know what that's like, trading up one spot for a quarterback. Another reason not to do it.
Amen. Well, John, you bring up almost all of our questions. With Jimmy G and kind of the Texans offseason. So really, what's the general consensus on Caserio and him being on his third coach in as many years?
Anybody, I'll give you an example. D'Amico Ryan's did a news conference at the Combine, like a lot of coaches, and a guy standing somewhere behind me brought up about what he meant was, how could you want to work for such a bad organization? And I wanted to turn around and say, how many Texans games did you watch the last 2 years? Obviously, he hadn't watched any. Lovie Smith would still be the coach here if he had had an offensive coordinator other than Pep Hamilton. Pep's as bad as I've ever seen. Quarterback coach was awful. Their offense is the worst I've seen in this franchise's history. They got blasted constantly every day. And there wasn't anything Lovie could do because he wanted to keep Pep Hamilton, who he coached with the Bears. And he gave Pep total control of the coaches on offense, the personnel on offense, the play calls, everything. And it was a disaster. If they just had a mediocre offense, Lovey'd still be the head coach. And David Culley, one of the all-time great guys, but he was just in over his head. And so anybody who watched him would know that. But nationally and around the country, people say, oh, my God, it's a terrible organization. They used to show a lot of patience with coaches like Gary Kubiak and Bill O'Brien. And then when that NFLPA thing came out and they were 4th best in the league at how their players judged them, a lot of people here are like, what? Did they get messed up? That must have been somebody else's. They must have meant 4th from the bottom, not 4th from the top. So right now with those picks, they got cap money for the first time since Caserio's been here. And I'll say this about Nick Caserio. He came from the Patriots, and the week he got here, Deshaun Watson wanted to be traded. And it was a disaster. He had to navigate that. He didn't have 1st or 2nd round picks because of stupid Bill O'Brien trades. They didn't have a number 1 the year before because of another dumbass O'Brien trade. So he comes in, his first pick's 3rd round quarterback Davis Mills, who looked real good at the end of his rookie year, but then they ruined him last season. And so I think Caserio, under the circumstances, to get stockpile the draft choices, undergo a massive rebuild, that he's done a good job to this point, but this time next season, they need to show some progress. They won 4-4-3 games the last 3 years. I think somewhere, D'Amico Ryans can do no wrong, but they got to get up somewhere in the 5th or 6th and give people hope. And you draft a quarterback at the top. That's their first franchise quarterback since Sean Watson in 2017 before his career here unraveled.
Yeah, it's a fun division too. I always enjoy, like, the Texans seem to beat the number one team at least once a year, and same thing with the Jags, and it's shaking up to be an awesome division. So it'll be fun to see what happens there.
Did you say awesome or awful?
It could be both. I mean, it could be awesomely awful.
Awful. If you look at this division, the Jaguars should be the best team. But remember in 2017 when they took the Patriots to the brink to go to the Super Bowl at Gillette Stadium? We thought they were going to rule the roost for a while, and everybody wanted more money, and they got rid of them. This time, hopefully, Shad Khan, the owner, will say, I'm going to start giving those contracts to people that deserve it, and he'll listen to Doug Peterson. And they will be the best team. Titans seem to be rebuilding. The Colts and the Texans are rebuilding. Texans are the only ones that use the term rebuilding because you couldn't lie about it and try to act like it was anything else. And Nick Caserio called it a massive rebuild. And that's exactly what it was. It was a massive rebuild, kind of like tearing down the Sears Tower and starting from the bottom.
Well, the Bears are on that track, maybe a year or two, hopefully ahead of the Texans. But with your number 2 overall pick, we've already kind of assessed that you're not trading up for number 1. What's your feel on the number 2 and DeMeco Ryans versus? I mean, you got several options. You already kind of hit on all of them. But if it's your pick, are you taking Bryce Young or Will Anderson, or are you thinking about taking Will Anderson and maybe using that number 12 pick to and some of those assets to move back up and take a Will Levis or somebody later? Because really, it's all about what the Colts do with that number 1 pick, John. So, kind of, what would you do? Because I kind of think we're moving back for the Colts. So what would you do in reaction to whatever the Colts do at number 1?
I think if the Colts take, and we're a long way from the final grades on these quarterbacks.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely.
People said Daniel Jeremiah, who I respect greatly, said C.J. Stroud threw the ball as well as anybody'd seen at the combine. I'm like, well, my God, nobody's rushing him. He's in shorts and a T-shirt. When they don't throw great, that's when you need to worry about it. And the pro days, you talk about a waste of time. They practice pro days like you're rehearsing for a Broadway musical. They do it for weeks and weeks and weeks with the quarterback guru, the quarterback and receivers. So they should be great. And you can't be fooled by that. You got to go by the tape. You guys know that. You have to look at the tape. But it's hard not to be impressed when you got pro days, private workouts, lunches, dinners, bring them in among the 30 players. I remember when Deshaun Watson came in among the 30, he was in their cafeteria and there were a few players that were eating in there because they've been working out. And the general manager who traded up to get him, Rick Smith, said he noticed all those veteran players got up and gravitated to Watson. He said he had cred because he lost the championship game to Alabama, then he'd beaten Alabama in the championship game, and everybody knew it, and they knew how great he played. So the leadership was something that he liked. I think that whichever one is not there, Stroud or Young, and they'll both be really highly rated, the one that doesn't go 1 is the one Texans will take him 2. If you need a quarterback, you guys know this. Look at the way the Trubisky thing backfired. And I don't know if Fields is the guy. I don't know what you guys think about it. But I saw the other day the Jets have started 14 different quarterbacks over the last 10 years. And you don't want to be on that treadmill to oblivion where you just every year you're ended up with somehow with Andy Dalton or Ryan Fitzpatrick or a guy like that. You want to get your guy. You can get pass rushers. You can get everything to go around him. You better get the quarterback, and that's why I think the Texans and the Colts will get the first 2. I could see Anthony Richardson going. I think he would be better off going somewhere like Josh McDaniels or Frank Reich. Both of them have years left on their contract. Frank 5, McDaniels 4. Former quarterback coaches and offensive coordinators. He needs to go to one of those type of coaches and watch and learn for a while till he's ready to play. Will Levis will probably go the other one. And I think Hendon Hooker from University of Tennessee is going to be a first-round pick despite tearing up his ACL and being 25 years old because if he doesn't start till he's 26 in his second year, if he plays till he's 35, that's a 10-year career. By then, they may all be Brady playing till they're 45. So Hooker, he'd be mentioned right up there with them, I believe, if he hadn't blown out his knee. And if he was a first-round pick before he got hurt, he should be a first-round pick after.
Now, John, I got to ask you this. Just, this is maybe switching a little bit because it's not pertaining to the Texans as much, but the Colts are in your division, obviously. And from our perspective here, so many Colts fans are telling us there is no way, there's not a snowball's chance in hell that Chris Ballard will give up more than one first-round pick to move up to number one. But from our perspective, it seems like he's kind of on his last leg there in Indianapolis. I just want to hear where you think the Colts are at. And he's been there for 7 or 8 years and has one playoff win. So I'm just curious to see if you think, is this the year that the Colts finally get desperate and pony up the money to move up to that number one pick possibly?
And when they won that one playoff game, it was here after the 2018 season with Andrew Luck. And it's not Chris's fault. He had a lot of chances to be a GM when he was with the Bears and then the Chiefs. And he wanted to go somewhere where he didn't have to worry about a quarterback. He had a franchise quarterback. Man, he goes to the Colts. He's going to have Andrew Luck for 10 years. And so I feel bad for him working for Jim Irsay. They said Jim Irsay wanted Wentz. Jim Irsay wanted Wentz cut. When they hired Jeff Saturday, I watched that news conference, and Jim Irsay was so excited. And you look at Chris Ballard, and he looked like he just undergone a colonoscopy. And you could tell he did not like what was going on. But I think most people think he's going to be out of there soon. And I think hiring Shane Steichen was really good. Texans interviewed him. He was one of the finalists. I thought it was a really good move. And but as far as giving up a lot, when you don't have a plethora of extra picks like the Texans do, you're going to be giving up picks down the road. And I think that would be good for the Bears. Because a team's like a salad. You don't want too much green. And if the Bears are going to be bringing in some expensive free agents plus draft choices that they acquired, they don't want them all this year. I'm sure Ryan Poles is going to be looking for them in 24, maybe 25. And I think that'd be a smart way to continue to rebuild the Bears. And I like Matt Eberflus a lot. I watched him. Texans interviewed him 2 years ago, and I thought he might have a chance to get the job. And so if Fields is the guy, and you hope Fields is the guy because you don't want to be in this situation again, Trubisky, Fields, and then whoever the next guy is, I think things look good for the Bears, and I think things look good for the Colts. But Chris Ballard, if Jim Irsay says trade 3 number ones, I ain't getting any younger, then he's going to trade 3 number ones.
Yeah, well, Bears fans would not mind that. We are talking live with John McClain at McClain on NFL_between both of those. John, we're having a great time talking with you. We've seen, like Joe topped the show off, that the franchise tag just passed. There's some very interesting things going on in the NFL. It's one of the more fascinating off seasons with, Aaron Rodgers potentially moving, Lamar Jackson potentially moving, Derek Carr, like you said, signed with the Saints. You got just some very interesting things. What's your take on this NFL off season so far, John?
It's been very interesting, and it's going to get more interesting. Usually you don't see this many franchise tags. Some teams did not use franchise tags that people had predicted they would. And I'll say this about Daniel Jones. If you say, what's the best thing about Daniel Jones? He doesn't throw interceptions. That's a lot of money for a guy that doesn't throw interceptions. Now, Brian Dable did a great job with Josh Allen, and Josh Allen kind of regressed in his first season without Dable. And I think Daniel Jones is going to continue to get better, especially when they put better people around him at receiver. And he's only 25. He may sign 2 or 3 more contracts. So that's a great deal for him. It's all about timing. Giants made the playoffs. People are pumped. I think the Jets and the Packers must have a deal. The parameters already worked out for everybody to go all the way across the country to meet with Aaron Rodgers. I'm guessing it's too much for Rodgers to have to go to New York. And maybe they're going to go on a darkness retreat together. But it looks like Rodgers is going to be gone. It's going to be a Jordan Love era. And you know what? After they had Favre and Rodgers, it's about time they struggle. Like I have no sympathy for the Colts after they had Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck and having to watch them every year 2 times. So I'm glad to see the Colts have to suffer a little bit with a quarterback. And Lamar Jackson, nobody talks about his injuries. He's missed 10 games the last 2 years. He's won 1 playoff game. Yes, he's a great quarterback. He's an MVP. He's got a great record. Teams do not want to give him a fully guaranteed contract like Deshaun Watson got. Is that collusion? Of course. Can you prove it? No. I don't think in this day and age any of these owners are dumb enough to be emailing and texting on the company email and cell phones. At least I don't think so. Maybe Dan Snyder. And the thing is about Lamar Jackson, if somebody else gives him a deal that the Colts like, they'll sign him themselves. Say, thank you for doing the work for us. But if they don't, they'll let him go, take the 2 ones, and draft somebody like Hendon Hooker. And a lot of people are talking about Atlanta and all these teams where he might go. And then there's these teams leaking it. They're not interested. And I feel bad for Lamar Jackson. I think he would have already been signed if he'd had an agent instead of advisors listening to the NFLPA. They're doing what's best for them in the union, not necessarily what's going to be best for him. And if most guys, if you say, look, we'll give you $150 million guaranteed, put your ego out of it. Like Derek Carr did. Carr might have been able to get more money from someplace else, but he's happy. He wanted to go to the Saints, and people are saying, oh, he didn't do a good job. His agent did a good job. If he's happy, they did a good job. And so I think Lamar Jackson, I expect him to be back in Baltimore playing under that franchise tag.
We're talking to John McClain, and make sure you check him out at GalileeSports.com. We're talking about new quarterbacks, which the Houston Texans are, as you predict, are going to have this coming year, and our Bears are working in a third-year guy with Justin Fields. It makes me think about Brandon Cooks and how he relates to kind of both franchises. Brandon Cooks kind of expressed some displeasure along the way with Houston. He's been a quality receiver at times in his career. I just want to get kind of your opinion on Brandon Cooks and kind of where you think his future lies, and if you see him contributing to either the Texans or the Bears in 2023.
The Cooks was a model player. The only time he didn't have 1,000 yards in his career was last year with the Rams when he had concussions. And the best deal that Bill O'Brien made out of all the bad deals he made as general manager was getting Cooks for a low 2. He had a high 2, but he gave the low one. And he got him, and he came in and 2,000-yard receiver seasons, and then he was a model citizen, leader. Everybody loved him. Then last year, they're losing again, and trade deadline comes, and he thought he was going to the Cowboys. And the Cowboys wouldn't give him what they wanted, and they didn't want to dump their best receiver because of these injuries to their other 2 receivers. So unless they got something really good, they weren't going to do it. And he got mad. And he didn't show up, and then they took his captaincy away from him. Lovie Smith did. But they let him come back, and he played well. He can still run. He's small, but he's avoided any kind of injuries other than 3 years ago when he had a couple of concussions. Not been an issue with Houston. Cleveland may be interested in him, too, to reunite him with Deshaun Watson. Cleveland, I'm guessing, is interested in DeAndre Hopkins because Watson and Hopkins are real close. But if I'm the Bears and I'm looking for a veteran receiver that I didn't have to break the bank for, I'd definitely be interested in Brandon Cooks to help out a young quarterback like Justin Fields.
Awesome. What do you think the compensation would be for a guy like Cooks?
Oh, truthfully, there was a report nationally. You know how those reports are that the Texans turned down at 2. Give me a break. You think that Nick Caserio has "I'm an idiot" across his forehead? They would have taken a 2 for him in a heartbeat. And I'm guessing you could get him for a mid-round pick and maybe throw in stipulation. If he hits 1,000 yards, it's 1 round higher. But I don't think he makes $18 million. And the Bears might shy away from that. I don't think so. But it would give Fields what he needs, a dependable receiver. And that's the thing about Cooks. He doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. And everybody wonders, well, why did he get traded all those times? Well, people had investigated why he got traded. The Saints wanted a pick to draft Ryan Ramczyk, their Pro Bowl right tackle. The Patriots didn't want to pay him. The Rams were worried about the concussion. So, and if the Texans trade him, it's just because they're ready to move on at this point in his career. So I'm guessing they get him for a mid-round pick, but that's just my opinion.
Well, John, this has been a huge pleasure for us, and we really appreciate you cutting some time out on your Tuesday night. I know you had a long week last week at the Combine. Make sure everybody go out and follow him at McClain on NFL with underscores on between those, and read all his work at gallerysports.com. It's been a huge pleasure for us, John. Thank you so much for being on with us tonight.
Guys, it's my pleasure. You think Ryan Pauls would take Brandon Cooks to swap places? Run that by him.
We're talking.
How can he pass that up?
Absolutely.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks,
Yes,
John.
sir. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sean. Have a good one.
Thank you.
There
Luke,
we go.
man.
John McClain. What an interview.
McClain. That was amazing. That guy is so tapped in. It just flows, just rattles off every situation, from the coaching staff to the players.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my head's still spinning about that. So he thinks we're trading in the top 4, and he thinks it's going to take a while, which is contrary to what we talked about before the show of it possibly happening before free agency, which I thought was interesting. But he seems like he's very intent on the Colts trading up to 1, which is interesting to me because we hear so much of the opposing view on Twitter, like Ballard's not going to do it. There's no way he's going to do it. But to his point, Irsay says jump, Ballard says how high. That's as simple as it gets.
Well, and it's fans on Twitter, right? They don't know. They don't have a clue.
To their point, he's never done anything like this before. Like it's very un-Ballard like. So
and it hasn't worked.
Right.
It's not working out. And John brought up some good points of how Ballard kind of got put in a rough spot, and Irsay's a hard man to work for with his I want this and I want that. Give me another 8-ball, but it'll be all right. It'll be fun. I thought it was interesting.
Imagine going into a job though, thinking you have a franchise quarterback for probably 8-9 more years.
Especially Andrew Luck, dude. That's
insane.
Right.
Oh,
he just bounces out.
He and his wife's like, this isn't worth it anymore. He's like, you're right. We just had a baby.
What were we gonna say, Chris?
I was just gonna say. No, I think, it's funny, like once the Combine started and all these rumors started, all of our opinions started going everywhere, right? Where if you go back a couple of months or a month when we first found out we had the number 1 pick, the Colts were like the obvious, this is the deal, right? And now we're coming full circle back to that with an AFC South Uber insider in John McClain kind of saying the Colts are probably the team that's gonna make that leap. It'll be very interesting. I wonder. All right, so let's start to put the two pieces together in that. Let's say Colts trade up to 1, they take QB-A. Doesn't matter who it is. Texans take QB-B. And then you have Arizona. I don't know does somebody trade up to Arizona's spot? They've been willing to move down to take Levis or Richardson. And then the Bears are there at 4. And now let's say Arizona takes Anderson for whatever scenario's sake. Yeah. Do the Bears at 4 take a player, or do they move down and out of that for that last QB spot? They can move down to 7 or 9. And Richardson or Levis are there at 4. The first 4 picks are quarterbacks. Do you think that that's a scenario that can play out?
It's definitely possible. I feel like every year we think the quarterbacks are going to fly off 1, 2, 3. It never happens that way.
I don't think they go like that.
Except the fucking Fields year where it did happen like that.
Well, it went 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, and then it went
Did it go 1, 2, 3? Who was the third quarterback?
Trey Lance.
Oh, that's right. He did go 3.
It was Lawrence. It was Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, and then it was Fields again at 11.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think the biggest wild card in this is that there's so many veteran quarterbacks available
Yes.
that I think that market is the teams that miss out on those guys will probably be more likely to trade with the Cardinals at 3, in my opinion. Like, I could see the Falcons if they don't get Lamar. They said they weren't going to pursue Lamar, but I could see the Falcons maybe moving up there as opposed to 1 and drafting a Richardson or Levis or someone like that. But I think the first pick is going to be teams who are not even interested in that market at all.
What's funny is like Ryan Pace in Atlanta, I bet loves Lamar Jackson. I bet you that's the kind of guy it's a much better version of Marcus Mariota, right? Who he was just absolutely obsessed with.
What are they? They're just not giving Desmond Ridder a chance?
Nah, bro.
Not one bit.
Nah.
It is interesting,
Not
though,
if you're
but
serious. If you want to win, Desmond Ritter's not your guy.
for me personally, I'm just fascinated by the Panthers because I think that is another team who's been on this quarterback carousel forever.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure their owner just wants a franchise quarterback.
Tepper.
And I feel like they seem like they're probably the most well equipped to bring in a rookie. Like, they have a decent roster.
I mean, look what Tepper's done. They went out and got Sam Darnold. They went out and got Mayfield. He's been desperate. They've been swinging for the fences. They were in on the Deshaun Watson game.
After Cam Newton kind of his body gave up on him, that was it for the Panthers since.
What's interesting is somebody was making Richardson comparisons to Cam, not exactly, but like, Richardson's athletic and
he's making them to himself.
And he's kind of like Cam Newton, and the Panthers had Cam Newton and blah 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 blah. And they were making those ties, but I don't want to make those ties. To me, with the Panthers, with their ready roster right now, they have a very solid defense. They have a stellar wide receiver out there, and I think they got to get one of the top 2 guys. They can't hope that Levis doesn't suck because of the O-line situation, and they can't wait for Richardson to mature into, an accurate, thoughtful or a strategic quarterback, that can make timing throws and things like that. So they almost have to get up to Stroud and Young if they're serious about getting one of these draftable quarterbacks.
Exactly. So that's I think is the biggest wild card. I think it'll come down to the Panthers, and especially if the Texans are staying at 2, I mean, that's going to create urgency by itself, because if teams know that the Texans, depending if the teams know the Texans are going to stay at 2 and take a quarterback, then it's like either you get 1 or you're on quarterback 3. So, yeah, I mean, this whole thing is fascinating. I mean, what do you guys think about all the kind of stuff that was coming out about the Bears last week? You think that's just Ryan Poles puffing that out, or you think this is real smoke?
Well, I don't want to call our friend John. I mean, awesome to have him, but a lot of news that we've heard, and I'm sure it might just be the Bears echo chamber, and that might just be it. Really, is that the deal is getting close to being done. John said it's not going to be done for a while, but Rich Eisen said that he's heard that it's getting close to being done, and apparently Ryan Poles is kind of given off that a couple of teams are far down the road, and he's just kind of got a couple by the balls at the moment. So I don't know. I hope that. I hope that Ryan Poles is doing orchestrating the off season the way we perceive, because that's awesome.
Well, I think he is, just from the pure fact that this is chaos. It's like every single person you could talk to will probably have a different opinion of what's going on.
Right.
And that's what it seems like. And I mean, he's been doing his media tours. He was even on the freaking Barstool podcast, which was like crazy that our GM is doing those now, but like awesome at the same time that they have a sense of humor and are just not, crazy stuck up. But Chris, what do you think about all this, man?
Man, it's crazy. I mean, the amount of smoke, like you said, Luke, could go any direction. It literally could go any direction. It could all be bullshit.
Yeah.
The PMT podcast was fantastic because it opened up, and Big Cat's asking Poles about, is is smokescreen season over yet? Are we still throwing out bullshit? And Pauls is like, it ain't over yet. And his face was so fucking serious. Like, it was just like, we ain't done yet. Like, we are still lying like it's our job. So I don't know. I think they could be throwing things out like a deal's almost done, maybe to create more urgency on some other teams.
Do you truly believe they want to get this done before free agency
No.
because of those benefits?
No, I don't. And I don't think there is that much of a benefit. I mean, what's the big benefit? Getting a player potentially?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is the biggest player that we've all heard.
That's
traded,
okay. Right? That's what I want to touch on next, because what's going on in Tennessee is very fascinating to me. I think
why? I mean, why
first, before we get to the free agency, I got a draft one more draft question since we're on draft.
I'm not even done with the draft yet.
Yeah. I can't even see you, Joe. You're all logging. You're lagging down there.
So like what I was gonna say is Simmons could get traded on draft day. I don't think Poles needs to have any sense of urgency to get something done before free agency, because like what happens if they land like a bunch of free agents that kind of shift their draft plan anyway, and they can either take a lesser offer to move down a little bit, or they can, what if they're like, they go balls to the wall and get a bunch of players that, Phil needs, that in the first 9 picks, they're fine not taking, and they drop a lot farther. So I think free agency is really going to dictate this thing. After hearing what John said, I've been down the rabbit hole and, going 2 to 4 to, I'm doing big cat trades over here and having 8 firsts next year and, 37 seconds. And I had all 64 picks in the first 2 rounds for the next 2 years, have all the picks, have all of them. No, I'm joking.
The Titans thing is fascinating to me, though, just because with the new GM, they are going to be in kind of just a complete teardown. And I mean, we saw what they did with AJ Brown, obviously a different situation, different regime, but they didn't want to pony up the money to pay him. So they just traded him. And now they're at a point where they need a quarterback. They're sitting at 12, and potentially the only way to get that quarterback is to move to 1. But to do that, they're going to have to give up immense draft capital, unprecedented amounts. So maybe you can lessen that load by giving up a guy like Jeffrey Simmons, who's looking for another massive deal, and that this GM didn't draft. So I think out of any player trades, that's probably the only one that I would want to do. And it's fascinating to me because I think there is a little smoke around that front about what the Titans are going to do with Simmons and him wanting a new contract.
Well, how does Jalen Carter's arrest play into all this? And that's what I was going to ask, because last week we recorded before the arrest stuff came out. And then it came out, and so how far is that? Because last week, up until the moment, we were all sitting here like, Carter or Anderson at 4, it's fine, no big deal. Does his arrest push him down to 6, 9, 12, wherever? And does that throw another wrench into letting us move further back for a Skoronski at 9?
I think that is. I saw something today that said Carter's probably not even going to be drafted in the top 5. Again, we don't know because there's still a lot of information that has to come out.
Right.
But if you are committing a top 5 pick, it is hard to commit it to a guy who is under investigation for a crime at the moment. Because a top 5 pick is different than picking him at pick 10 or 15 or whatever. You're lessening the risk the further you move back. So if the Bears were to move to the Colts pick, I don't know if they would feel comfortable taking him there. And personally, I think we saw a little bit into how this regime is going to run things last year when they passed on George Pickens. They supposedly took him off the draft board for his character concerns. I saw that. I don't know if that was confirmed, but if it's true, then I can't imagine Jalen Carter also wouldn't be off the draft boards.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, that makes me want Simmons a lot more, because I think we need that middle. I think we need that defensive tackle, that front guy who's gonna kind of anchor the defense.
Ironically enough, Jalen Carter's comp was Jeffrey Simmons.
Well, give us the proven guy, Tennessee, and 2 more firsts. And then
that's fascinating. That would be quite the haul to get a Simmons 2 first and then also draft another guy at 12. That'd be sick. But did you guys see that where Pohl said he said they have 7 guys who they consider in their blue bucket, the blue chip bucket, which is their highest rated bucket, that they would take first overall.
Let's name them.
Well, I'm going to guess that there's quarterbacks in there too, to be honest.
Yeah,
with you.
yeah. Stroud and Young is 2.
I don't think any of the other quarterbacks would be there.
I agree. Anderson.
I think it would be Carter also would be in the blue bucket, regardless of from just play on the field. Who would the other 3 be? I think Skoronski, honestly. There's something about him. I think he's just such a safe football player that they would be comfortable taking him high.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you think it's Quentin Johnson maybe or JSN?
No, I don't know. I'm gonna guess I'm gonna guess Tyree Wilson would be one of the other guys too. The other edge rusher,
and the Texas Tech kid.
The 7th guy, I don't know.
Brian Branch.
I'm just spitballing here.
Brian Breesy.
It's Brian Branch.
Who the hell is Brian Branch?
He's a safety.
Yeah.
Brian Breesy.
Brian Breesy.
Brian Branch.
I don't know who their 7th player would be. It might be JSN. I don't know.
It's probably one of the corners.
Yeah, this is a good. Christian Gonzalez is pretty sick. Well, anyway, that's just a little nugget that I thought was interesting, which tells me they would probably be comfortable dropping down to 9 because if let's just say they included 2 of the 4 quarterbacks in there, that means there would be 2 extra guys in that list. If you follow what I'm saying.
Well, let's do it. Let's drop to 9 and be at 9 and at 12 and, all over the map.
Yeah, we need picks. We really do.
We need a guy like Peter Skoronski and Brian Branch and, Will Anderson.
Before we dive into the free agency, like we said, what did you guys think of the combine? Do we agree with John? Do we not put too much stock into it? Is it
the combine's more about the interviews and the medicals?
At the combine, anyone catch your attention? I mean, those D linemen were moving, man. That was impressive.
I'll tell you this, man. There are definitely drills that translate.
Yeah. I was excited to see Luke Van Ness run the 3-cone drill because I didn't think he was that athletic, and he tested really well. Which, to me, I was like, okay, awesome. That was good to see. I think for edge rushers and D linemen, that kind of stuff is pretty important. But straight line 40s for offensive linemen is kind of dumb.
Yeah, I want to see.
Did you see that guy get hurt?
Tore his ACL, yeah.
Oh yeah, then put up 38 bench press.
Dude, that's impressive. Have you ever tried benching without your legs?
No. Why would I?
Well, that's basically what he did. I mean, he could have probably got 6 to 8 more reps if he had his legs grounding him.
I know, but why would me as a normal human being just
I don't
without your legs?
Not people put them up on the bench and they just straight chest. I don't know. It's a common thing.
That's that.
But no major takeaways other than these guys now are just athletic monsters. It's absolutely insane. D lineman running 4.48.
I think it's super interesting seeing like you said, super athletes, incredible measurables, just humongous human beings like DeJuan Jones. Offensive linemen having 39-inch verticals is bananas. That was nuts. Anthony Richardson having a 10 relative athletic score, which is as high as you can get, which is just absolutely bananas. Sick was 6'3" and 244 and 10.5-inch hands and 4.4 speed and put up 4 bajillion bench press reps. I mean, he's just an animal. Some team should move up to number 1 just to take that guy.
There's smoke around that too now, but as our friend John alluded to, you got to watch the tape, and the tape was inconsistent, Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, I mean, we talk about these super athletes, and it's funny, a guy like Will Anderson who runs a 4.6, we're like, is he really that slow? And we're just like, it's the same thing that like Khalil Mack ran. It's like he's the same exact size as Khalil Mack. We're like, is he really that slow? As if that's like a really slow time now for a D end.
Absolutely terrible. Well, before we have the main course entree of the draft this year, which is, what the Bears are and what we're looking forward to, I think more than anything, is the appetizer of free agency. And I think Bears have a ton of money, obviously, but free agency can be fool's gold. Lots of players at positions that the Bears need. One of the biggest ones that the Bears need is wide receiver, as everybody is well aware of. Is one of the ones that's lacking. Kind of has no good like blue chip players, as it were. So who are some of the guys you all, Lucas? I know you're drooling to talk about some free agents that you want to see in navy and orange next year.
You want to start with the wide receivers?
Why don't we just start on offense? Why don't you give me your favorite offensive ad across all positions?
Okay. I like that. Running back, I think, is so today we got the news that Barkley was tagged. Previously, we talked about Josh Jacobs, who also got tagged. Tony Pollard got tagged. So the running back market went from once being one of the greatest free agent running back markets we've ever seen to now barren. So we have, obviously, Montgomery's a free agent, Miles Sanders. Those are probably the two best running backs available, and I don't want either of them. I am fine just completely skipping out on running back this free agency. Mm-hmm. If you put a gun to my head and made me choose a guy, I would maybe look at a guy like Kareem Hunt or maybe Raheem Mostert, but draft one in the mid rounds.
Mostert's 31 with a bad injury history.
No, I would just draft one. I wouldn't even bother with this.
What's your take on like a Devin Singletary or an Alexander Madison who are in their mid-20s?
Madison would be interesting because he's been in that backup role for so long, and definitely when Cooks went out, he's been pretty solid. So that's interesting. I honestly didn't even know he was a free agent. What do you think about that, Joe?
About Madison?
Or just the running backs in general?
No, well, I'm with you on skipping out on the running backs in general. I think that just draft a guy, use one of your picks that you acquire, and draft a guy, because none of these guys are worth. I mean, if you can get one of these guys on a cheap deal, bring Kareem Hunt on a cheap deal. I like him, but I'm not really going out and eager to spend a whole lot of money. Like, look at the skill positions. I'm not eager to spend a whole lot of money at the running back or at the wide receiver position either. And I know we need it. Golly, we need it. But like, it kind of sucks. We've got a lot of assets. We got a lot of money. We got a lot of potential draft picks after we make some moves. And I don't really love the skill positions in either the draft or the or the free agency.
Yeah, wide receiver is pretty barren to me as well. As far as skill positions goes, I do think there are some interesting tight end options. Bears could always use another tight end. I mean, we saw Cole Kmet, Golden Domer, racking it up last year with, I believe, over 600 yards and over 6 touchdowns, and
he's the man.
Pretty much sealed the deal. I think that should have been the jersey bet that Joe should have paid up for. But I really like Irv Smith. I think he's an athletic freak for the position. I mean, he's a pretty athletic talent at tight end. And then Hayden Hurst always bounces around, but he's a solid talent.
Yeah.
And there's Dalton Schultz out there as well, who I think is going to command a little bit too much money for my taste. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Similar to Kmet too, play style.
Right.
Wise. I mean, that's tight end is interesting, I think, because
that may be your strongest group.
This tight end class, well, I was going to say this tight end draft class is insanely deep. Some of these guys were saying there might be 4 tight ends that go in the first round. I mean, this is an absurd. Like, you can draft tight end 5, 6, 7, and he would be tight end 1 in some other classes. So again, if the Bears get more assets, I maybe go for more of
Adam Shaheen.
an Evan Ingram type tight end where he's more of a wide receiver that you're going to put in the slot as opposed to an inline Cole Kmet type. So
like
again, I don't know.
Like a Mike Gesicki?
Yeah, except I wouldn't sign him.
So like an Adam Shaheen.
The skill positions are just, yeah, you're right. They're a little bit whack. I mean, looking in free agency at the wide receiver market, Jacoby Myers is the big fish, if you will, and he is nothing to write home about. But
the only wide receiver I might be interested in would be Darius Slayton.
I was going to say Slayton is my guy, and he has the connection to Tyke Tolbert too from New York. I mean, when he's gotten the chance there, didn't he have like over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns one year? He was insane the one year he was like the Giants' main target. He's had some drop issues, but I've always think he's been underutilized in New York, to be honest, and he would be a really good, buy low candidate for the Bears. I expect them to.
He's only 26 years old.
Yeah, no. I think he was an undrafted free agent or something like that. He kind of flew under the radar, and he had that one really good season there. But I expect the Bears to also be interested in McCole Hardman and maybe Paris Campbell due to their connections to KC and Indy. But I think Hardman's probably going to be a little bit hotter of a commodity than people think.
Oh, yeah. Somebody's going to want to pay him.
It's so stupid.
That speed, man.
So dumb. I mean,
Paris Campbell's interesting to me. If I had to choose between the two.
Yeah, I like Paris Campbell. I mean, he put up some points for my fantasy teams in the second half of the season. He had a couple good games.
Just that asset of having speed is going to make.
Well, that's what I was going to say. All three of those guys between Hardman, Campbell, and Slayton, they kind of bring that speed aspect that the Bears need. So any three of those would be a good fit. But again, I don't really know how much money these guys are going to command. I mean, I'm more worried about fixing the trenches in free agency.
Right. If you get that fixed, then you really, I mean, shoot, you have a lot to work with, in my opinion. What do y'all think about Mike McGlinchey?
Well, that's the thing. There's three big tackles in this class. You got McGlinchey, you got Caleb McGarry, who was drafted by Chris Morgan, by the way, in Atlanta. So that's interesting. They drafted him in the first round when Morgan was the coach there with Shanahan. And then you have Jawan Taylor, who the Jaguars are going to let test the market.
I'll pass on Jawan Taylor.
All right, Joe's passed on Jawan Taylor. Chris, what do you think?
I'm taking Taylor, but I'd be super fine with McGlinchey as well.
I think McGlinchey's going to be the guy they end up getting. I mean, the fit just makes too much sense. But I am with you, Chris. I want Jawan Taylor. I think the Bears need pass blocking. Their true pass sets last year were horrendous.
Did you call them pass sets?
True pass sets.
Pass sets. I thought you were saying like assets, but with pass at the bringing in of it, like a pass set.
See, that would be clever,
man. Right. That was smooth.
We run so much boot action that true pass sets is few and far between in Bears fans' vocabulary.
Somebody was talking about, how Taylor isn't the best run blocker, but that in systems past before Urban Meyer got there, he was a great run blocker. He just got put in shitty situations after that. And then last year with Peterson, he was a great pass blocker and wasn't really asked to run block all that much, but that in this system, he could definitely be a good run blocker again, and we already know he can pass block. So I think Taylor has good upside. He's also, I think, a couple of years younger than.
He's only 25. He's young.
Isn't McGlinchey like
28?
28. Yeah. So then,
and McGarry's the same.
We don't know where birthdays lie, so it's probably a couple of years. But I think Taylor could be a good pickup for the Bears, but. McGlinchey's good, man.
Golden Domer, man. Aren't they all good?
Well, I mean, he's been running that system
outside zone,
that outside zone forever. So.
He's good.
Joe, I want to know why you don't like Taylor, just out of curiosity.
This may be an incorrect perception, and I admit it's just a perception, but I have a perception of Jawan Taylor of being slow and stupid.
Why is he stupid?
He played at Bama, right?
No, he didn't.
Where did he play? He
I
played
believe
somewhere in the
Jawan
SEC,
Taylor
didn't he?
played at Tennessee. I think he's
Okay.
a Tennessee boy.
Well, dude, he lost a ton of weight, I think, for the draft. I think he was like really heavy and he slimmed down to like 310 or something like that.
Yeah,
Really
like I
good
said,
playing size.
I admit it could be an incorrect perception, but that's my perception of him as a player.
I know he lost a lot of weight at one point, so maybe that's where that's coming from.
Didn't he go to correct me? Didn't he go to Denver and he got hurt in an off season?
No, he's been with the Jaguars his whole career.
Who am I thinking?
This is his second contract.
You're thinking. I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name.
I don't know if you're talking about the right dude, Joe.
Well,
No.
then maybe I'm not.
Jawan Taylor has been with the Jags,
Which is why I prefaced it the way I did.
I mean, he has played over 1,000 snaps in all 4 of his NFL seasons, so he's a durable guy as well.
he's never gotten hurt.
Hasn't McClinchy had some?
Yeah, he tore his Achilles or something, tore a hamstring or tore an ACL. All right, fuck it. Give me Jawan Taylor.
Well, moving on to some.
I just want whoever's going to be mean. And
Wait,
nasty.
can we talk about this real quick too? Orlando Brown
Yeah.
didn't get tagged. Do we have any interest in him? I know we talked about this. I personally don't like the guy.
Oh,
but he's obviously a Ryan Poles fit.
No.
I mean, just because he has Ryan Poles ties doesn't mean he's a Ryan Poles fit.
Well, I figured Ryan Poles probably had some part in acquiring him to Kansas City because him and the someone else on Poles' staff were both there as high-ranking executives when they made that trade for him.
Fair. Like I said in our chat, if he's willing to play right tackle, I mean, I think he's gotten too slow to play left tackle.
He's
I don't
not.
understand.
He's not really a scheme fit at all. He's very slow. His feet are slow, and I think what people don't really understand is like they're talking about all these pass blocking metrics, which he wasn't very good at last year, by the way. They're like, yeah, he improved over the year. We're also talking about Patrick Mahomes, who's probably the best player in the NFL at evading pressure. So that, I mean, you switch that with Justin Fields, who's quite the opposite. We have some issues, I think. I think he's very overrated, and I think he's going to get paid way too much.
I agree with you. What do you think about Ben Powers?
I love Ben Powers, man. If they're
yes,
that's a plug and play guard. He's a scheme fit. He again another durable guy from Baltimore.
Yes.
I love that. He's another guy too. He's young. He's 25, 26. I mean, I think that's like plug and play at guard, but they would have to make a decision on Whitehair, which I think he should be replaced. But
yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not a. I've always been a Whitehair fan. I guess I don't hate. I don't know. I just like he's never been the replaceable guy to me. I think that they screwed him over moving him around too much.
Yeah.
And if they'd have left him at guard his whole career, he'd have been fine. What do you guys think about Nate Davis from Tennessee?
I don't know too much about him, to be honest with you.
I mean, same scheme. He has had some injury, but I mean, 26 years old, still young, and like I said, scheme fit, probably a little bit lower on the pay chart, along with like a Dalton Risner or whatever you want to say.
Or an Isaac Seumalo, who kind of mentioned there from Philly.
Risner, actually, my work here, I work in Denver, right? So my work here got him to do a cameo for one of my colleagues. So that was pretty interesting. And yeah, he's a big, smelly, nasty guy, like you like to see, Joe.
That's what we want. That's what we want.
I think he's pretty athletic though too. Not bad.
Yeah. Ethan Posick or Pochik or Pokic or however you say that CIC at the end of his name is another name that the Bears community wants to have at center, which is probably the biggest interior need.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they address this. Again, I don't know. I feel like center is one of those things that I personally like drafting that position, but outside of him, I don't really know if there's much else out there of guys who would be very good centers.
We're not going to bring back that Packers bum, Lucas Patrick.
Oh, I have a bad feeling he might be our starting center, but
Patrick Lucas.
I
that.
I would like to see Fields build rapport with a young center.
A long-term solution.
Yeah.
Get the dude that played with him at Ohio State.
Well, whether
Weipler.
if it's a draft pick, Weipler, man,
Weipler.
that sounds like something you do after you use the bathroom.
His last name is Wypler. How
Are
would
you
you
done?
pronounce that?
Are you done doing your Weipler? You got your Weipler taken care of.
He's gonna whip your ass.
So, I mean, Doug Kramer was a guy that everybody was high on in the offseason last year. Draft pick.
Tore his ACL.
Coming back this year is on track to be ready for. I'm not sure if it's OTAs or if he's going to be ready for preseason or training camp or whatever, but something like that, is what I would like to see, and maybe some sort of. I mean, if it's Lucas Patrick as the bridge to Kramer or a draft pick, then so be it.
If I never see Lucas Patrick play another down, I'll be happy.
Speaking of center, do you guys see Sam Mustipher's brother at the combine? I think his RAS was 1.42, which might have been the lowest I've ever seen.
It's all in family.
No, it was 10.42. They just couldn't even measure it.
He ran a 5.4140.
Oh my God.
That is horrible.
Was he gigantic? Was he skipping?
Dude, his 20-yard split was 3.12.
Oh my God.
Damn.
And his 27-inch vertical jump. That's hilarious.
I think my old ass could do that right now.
I think you could, dude. I think you could backpedal faster than he could run.
Well, moving over to the defensive side of the ball, we'll stay in the trenches because
Ben Powers, that's who we need, Chris.
Ben Powers.
Powers.
I think Ben Powers are going to be kind of pricey.
We don't care. We got a lot of money.
I think guard is taken care of next year. So
we got a shit ton of money.
Well then, I mean, I don't know, man. Like Bears fans want to go apeshit on the offensive line, but I really see only two big needs in that center and right tackle. I think right guard is locked. I think left tackle, I think they love Braxton Jones. And left guard, Cody's very serviceable. Right. If they want to replace him, it is what it is.
I will say realistically, I think more so than a Ben Powers, I think a Sayamalu or an Andre Dillard is more realistic to bring in depth for those swing positions. Like if you bring in Dillard, you can bring in at least competition for Braxton Jones at left tackle / reassurance with a vet behind him. You know what I mean? It's a guy he should beat out, but you have veteran presence there. And then same with Whitehair. If you bring in Sayamalu, he can play all over the line. Whitehair gets hurt, perfect. You plug and play him, and you're still not bad off. So I agree with you, Chris. They're probably not going to go. They're probably going to go nuts on a right tackle, and that's probably it. And then fill out some depth.
Right, and they have so many. Like people, do y'all forget how bad this defense was last year? I mean, this defensive line was fucking terrible. I mean, give me Draymond Jones, give me Hargrave, give me A'Shawn Robinson, all of them. Like, give them all, and keep Justin Jones.
So I know we talked last week about the Hargrave versus Draymond Jones situation, which is interesting. Hargrave's 30, Draymond's 26. They both projected probably, I think we saw 18 to 20 million a year, which is steep for a D tackle. Another guy I think no one's talking about is Zach Allen from the Cardinals. He's kind of like Draymond Jones. He's a 3-4 DN that can play inside, and he's been a solid pro his career, but he's not that big name, so he's going to come a little bit cheaper than those guys.
Did you say Dalvin Tomlinson?
I said Zach Allen, but Dalvin Tomlinson is another good name that could possibly play 3 technique, but he's not going to give you that pass rush.
NFL.com has Zach Allen as their 8th best free agent. That's pretty high.
I didn't even realize he was that high, but he's very good. I started watching more of him when someone brought him up. But I don't think, compared to, Draymond and Hargrave, I think he'll be a notch below that, pay-wise.
They have Draymond at 7 just for comparison's sake. I mean, I'm not saying I don't have scouting tape on the Broncos and the Cardinals, just playing on a loop in my house, so I don't know. But
why not?
Bluey is usually on.
You guys got anyone else on the D line there that you want to talk about, or edge rushers? I mean, this is an interesting edge class. There's not much.
Marcus Davenport.
Do you think they look at Frank Clark at all, who was just released by the Chiefs?
Not at 30.
Little vet edge rusher.
Yannick Ngakoue.
I am interested by Samson Ebukam from the 49ers.
What makes you interested in him?
All right. I should say I'm interested in him because I think it's a realistic signing for the Bears. He's kind of a name that flies under the radar. He's very athletic and traitsy, but really hasn't had like a full-time role yet. So kind of that guy you're just going to bet on the young upside and hope he pans out. Same with Arden Key. Arden Key had a really good year for Jacksonville. Gets a lot of pressures. I could see the Bears going after a guy like that, but I think he'll be a little more pricey than a guy like Ebukam.
Yeah, I think wasn't Arden Key? Didn't he get drafted like by the Jags in the second? I mean, I liked him coming out of LSU. Raiders.
He was really highly touted coming out of college. I think he had some issues that dropped him
off the field.
Well, he is also super skinny too. Ebukam is interesting. 95 pressures over the last 2 years. That does include the playoffs, but I mean, he's got Nick Bosa on the other side of him, but that doesn't make you.
Like I said, he's a traitsy guy. He's like really, really athletic, and I don't know. I feel like
that's an interesting one, dude. For sure.
You know how they like it. They like what they like.
That's one of your. Is he long? Is he long and strong?
Yeah, he's long, baby.
Down to get the friction on. Linebacker. I think linebacker is definitely in need. They have
Okereke.
Dude,
Okereke.
This free agent linebacking class. This is like where all the players are. Like if you want to like spread them out across all the positions that somebody just forgot and dumped the entire silo into the linebacking room. So Bears have. Man, why can't I ever remember dude's name?
We should sign that guy, Roquan Smith.
Sanborn?
Jack Sanborn. Good God.
He's going to be your Mike.
Yeah, so he's your Mike.
Okereke would probably be Will if they sign him.
Okereke, you got Tremaine Edmonds, you have TJ Edwards, who was with Sanborn. The other thumper types are Vander Esch and David Long. And there's a plethora of other linebackers that are out there.
There's Anthony Barr if they really wanted to go down that route and give him a vet deal.
Isn't he like 100 years old though?
Yeah, he's 32. I mean, 2 years ago he was sick. Last year he had a down year, but
2 years ago, bro.
I'm just saying, I don't know. Yeah, they probably won't sign him.
We need him if Rodgers is on the schedule. We'll just play him for one game.
I think the Okereke signing though is going to be like the Pringle signing last year. It just seems inevitable that he's going to sign with the Bears.
Like,
what do you guys think?
Like, who was the dude that ended up getting popped for PEDs when he came from Denver to Chicago? No, never mind.
The Colts guy?
No, never mind. Danny T came from Denver to Chicago, and that was like uber obvious because of John Fox when that happened.
Yeah,
that was the Colts guy was the guy I was thinking of, but that's
Freeman. Was his name Freeman?
Freeman, yeah.
Yes,
he was sick too. He was really
so
good. And then,
you're on PEDs,
then he got
you'll
popped,
be better.
And then didn't he go to like the CFL or something like that?
Yeah.
I think he's in the XFL now. I don't know.
He's like 50 now.
Anyway, do you guys think that's like set in stone pretty much that they're going to sign a
Bobby Okereke? Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But there's the other Colts linebacker too. Though.
EJ Speed.
Is that who?
Yeah,
we'll just sign them all, and we want to sign.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Nicholas Marr is a free agent. I would love to re-sign him back. To be honest, I like Nicholas Morrow. I think he was fine.
Oh, Aziz Al-Shair is who I was thinking of.
Oh, they have another linebacker called EJ Speed, who's a free agent as well.
Aziz Ojulari.
No, Aziz Al-Shair. There's way too many hard names in this league now.
All right, and then the underrated signing that we talked about the other day, the WTF signing that the Bears could do. Do you think they address the secondary in free agency? I think they do.
Jonathan Gardner-Johnson.
I think Jonathan Jones is a name to watch out for. He's really, I'm kind of shocked the Patriots didn't tag him, but he's a really, really good slot corner who they played on the outside last year, and he wasn't good outside. But he's basically a plug-and-play slot that should get a decent payday in free agency. Jonathan Jones.
What about Rock Ya-Sin?
Rock Ya-Sin from the Colts.
CJ Gardner-Johnson.
I hate that dude.
I hate him too, but you love him when he's on your team.
Yeah,
and plus, I would love to just see the Eagles not sign him.
What do you think about Von Bell?
Yeah. I'm not really. See, I like Chauncey Gardner because he plays safety and corner, so you could either plug him in at the nickel or you could have him run 3 safety sets for you.
That would be awesome.
But I don't see them going after like a huge safety like Jesse Bates or anyone like that.
What do you guys think of like Jamel Dean from the Bucks?
I like, yeah. I mean, it's a decent class. He's solid.
Yeah, it does seem like free agency is lining up on the defensive side of the ball.
James Bradbury too.
Bradbury's a good one, but he's on the wrong side of 30 again. And Cam Sutton's 28.
All right, so out of all those names we just named, we just talked about who we like. Who do you think the Bears are going to sign? Just give me 3 or 4 names. You think
Okereke, McGlinchey. I think those 2 are for sure.
I think 2 more.
I think Okereke and McGlinchey are pretty solid. I think Draymond Jones is the splash.
Dalvin Tomlinson.
So? Yeah.
You think they go Tomlinson over Draymond, Joe?
It'll be cheaper.
Yeah,
they do have to meet that floor, man. They're gonna have to shell out over $100 million in first year cash. So,
well, you and I will be on the payroll for $50 apiece, so we'll be good.
$50? You guys got the Bears to pay you $50 to do this? Oh man,
that's more than Olin got.
$50 million. What are you talking about? Did you not tell him, Luke?
You like that, Chris?
Did you not tell him? We've been getting
on the payroll.
We've been getting paid for this shit the whole time. Has he not been giving you your cut?
I've been getting paid in doll hairs, dude.
No, and I'm having to beg you guys to fucking Venmo me the goddamn StreamYard money.
Yeah, what are you talking about? We've been on the take the whole time.
All right, so who else are we signing? You got Tomlinson, you got Draymond.
I think they sign a defensive end, whether that's, I don't think they'll double dip with like Zach Allen or anybody like big, but I think like
Ben Powers,
Marcus Davenport. No, I said defense. Pay attention.
Marcus Davenport, you like
or
him?
Ngakwe, maybe.
Yeah, I mean he did play for the Colts too. That's interesting. Yeah, I think I was gonna say I think McGlinchey and Okereke are pretty set, like you guys said.
I think LVE makes a lot of sense because I think he was there when Eberflus was the DC or was the linebackers coach in Dallas. So
forgot about that.
That would line up as well, which like it's amazing how much that's like looking back at how the tea leaves line up when you look at free agency. It really is just like who and like guys that tie to people, and that's where they sign. And money, I mean, obviously, but people want to be comfortable. They want to be happy. Like John was saying about Derek Carr. I mean, yeah. I think free agency is going to be interesting. We're a week away, right, from legal tampering, or 6 days away. I think next Monday they can start asking people if they want to go steady.
Do you want to go steady with us in the Windy City?
By the way, if you were curious about Samson Ebukam's RAS, it was a 9.8. He is an elite athlete.
That makes my taint tickle.
He runs a 4.5 40 flat, vertical jump of 39 inches, broad jump over 10 feet. Yeah, he's 6'1".
What's it like to be
240.
that athletic, Luke?
I don't know, man. That guy would smoke me for sure. Well, that's all I got. Yeah, Monday is the unofficial start of free agency because that's when they can start talking, even though it's already all the deals are probably already done.
Right, they were done at the combine.
They were done at the combine.
Being emailed to Adam Schefter to be released accordingly.
We already have Okereke talking to Bears fans on Instagram, so
heck yeah. It was a fun episode, guys. We covered a lot.
We covered a lot of ground.
Definitely.
Now we just got to take up an hour and a half of someone's time tomorrow when they listen to this.
Let's do it.
Enjoy, everyone. I think it was a fun episode, one of the best here at the Believe in Monsters podcast, at least since I've been on. I know you guys had some fun with Mr. Aaron Lemming in the past, but John McClain might top that because that was a good time. That guy's so plugged in.
We didn't have any episodes before you joined.
That's true. They weren't real.
It's just
we were missing something.
It's a part of those are trial runs.
Practice. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Right. We could tell
whatever.
something was not right. Something was off. So yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
All right, Joe, you can sing Bear Down. And next Tuesday when we record, we will have some free agent news, which will be exciting to talk about.
Ooh, new players on the Bears next week. That's definitely worth a Bear Down. Bear down, Chicago Bears, make every play clear the way to victory. Bear down, Chicago Bears, put up a fight with the might so fearlessly. We'll never forget the way you throw the nation with your T formation. Bear down, Chicago Bears, and don't forget why you're wearing the crown. You're the pride and joy of Illinois. Chicago Bears, bear down.